Hey there viewers, my name's Torinski and welcome back to another DCSS Sunday. Today we're going to be jumping back into the usual routine, trying to get a win with every species in the game. Because of course last week, we finally got past the curse of the Tengus that had been struck down upon us, and now we're finally moving on to the next species in the list, which will be Deep Elves. No promises it's going to get too much easier. Unfortunately, we're still going to be dealing with having a lot less total health than usual, but at the very least, we have a ridiculous amount of spell casting potential kind of on the back end in order to hopefully push through any of the problems that otherwise might try to stop us. But with that in mind, let's get ready to hop into it today. Oh, and I knew I was forgetting something. I did not think of any fun or clever names before getting on today. Well, that's a shame. We're gonna potentially go with something a little bit boring off the bat, and then maybe if we die, hopefully not, but maybe, just maybe, we can steal some names from chat. But here we go into Deep Elf. I was tempted to go with Fire Elementalist. Of course, this is our first time within this series, playing on the new version of the game, 0.28. So Fire Elementalist got a whole bunch of, or not a whole bunch, but at least a couple of little changes, some new spells to throw into the mix. So it could be fun to try out, but if we're going for consistency and maybe trying to, provide a good example for what Deep Elves should potentially go in with, then I'm a little more tempted to go with the Conjurer background. It has a bit more utility early on, especially with trying to stay alive. It's nice to have something like IMB, Iskendaron's Mystic Blast. Always forget these fancy wizard names whenever I haven't seen them in a little bit. But that helps us just keep enemies off of our adjacent spaces, which in turn, hopefully, means that we can stay alive just that much longer. It's also tempting to go Hedge Wizard, get that Mephitic Cloud early on so that you have some kind of confusion that you can put on enemies. Very similar reasoning there. So with that in mind, let's go with Conjurer today. And again, because I'm not feeling at all creative, I mean, the first elf that comes to mind is Legolas. It's not exactly accurate to the background we chose. Would more so want Brigand or some kind of arcane marksman, potentially. So what else can we throw at this? Like, Galadriel is a deep elf, less so conjurer, more so like hexes, maybe. It's always funny to try and classify fictional characters by like D&D classes or backgrounds. Let's do it. The good lady Galadriel will show her support, and maybe, just maybe, we can get through in one piece. But okie dokie, we'll start out with the usual. The interesting thing about Deep Elves is that even though they show up a little bit later here in the intermediate column for species, they're not that complicated. They don't have too many special innate features, they don't have any mutations that they start the game with. Instead, all of their kind of flavor is built statistically. So you can see that we have really great magic aptitudes all across the board, pretty garbage when it comes to any kind of melee fighting. Even that fighting skill here is at -2, which means not only do we have -20% overall health, we also struggle a little bit to even get that lower value up there against this -2 aptitude. The other thing to keep in mind is that we have really good intelligence score right off the bat, so definitely helps out for getting these spells castable a little bit sooner than we otherwise might expect. But otherwise, that's about it. It's about all we're working with Deep Elves here. It's definitely a wee bit different than a lot of the other characters that we've seen in the recent runs here. But with that out of the way, just trading some more conjurations, trying to get those level 4 spells castable this moment we hit level 4, if possible. It's one of the few species where it is, just because of that higher than normal intelligence value right off the bat. But then, I was about to say we're ready to go. I've gone too much into the groove of the tournament runs that we were doing on Wednesday, but of course, in this series, we're playing offline. So let's post the dump file. Yet another little thing that I forgot to get set up beforehand. Excuse me while I navigate to the folder real quick to grab the good old seed, of course. Just in case there are any lovely folk out there who want to follow along at home, see if they can face off against the dungeon in a much better fashion than we do here on the show. I definitely enjoy having this up on the screen for them. And this one, but not that seed, that was our Tengu. And there we go, let's plop that bad boy down. And with that, we are good to go. I'm excited to see what the dungeon holds. We've only gotten the barest bit of experience in the new version, in the little bit of tournament play that we've managed to fit in so far. So I'm definitely looking forward to what we have in store. And of course, I actually forgot, we're in a new version, so all of my macros have disappeared. There probably is a way for me to just pull a file over. Maybe if I overwrite the saves instead of just keeping all the different versions in distinct folders, it wouldn't be so much of a problem. But it's always a nice reminder, just in case there's anybody out there who didn't see us set them up in the first place and might be struggling a little bit with this side of the game. So of course, Control D will pop in, and I want the trigger key to be my 1 key, capital Z A, so that it's always going to cast that spell in the A slot no matter what's around us. And we'll just quickly pop through here, setting up the first 4-5 spells, something like that. Just a nice little, oops. Let's redefine. Or let's just abort out of that and restart. There we go. 3 is what we wanted, of course. And last but not least, maybe we'll start with 4 for now. I'm sure we'll get a 5th one in there eventually, but there's no real rush. And okie dokie, with that all set up, now we're ready to go into the dungeon for real. There's always something, isn't there? I guess what I failed to mention in my brief little overview of Deep Elves is that we do get to start with, I think, 2 extra base magic points. So that goes a pretty long way, especially early on here, where we really don't want to have to get into melee combat with any of these sons of guns. It's nice to have that extra couple of spell casts to get us through in times of trouble. Where did that dart slug go? There you are, buddy. I was pretty sure you saw us. And level 2, not too shabby here. Kobold with a short sword is potentially lethally dangerous on this character in particular, so it's definitely a nice one that we didn't manage to bring them into close quarters combat. Essentially, any of these humanoid monsters with a weapon in hand is what we're really looking out for on D1 in particular. Quarterstaff is kind of interesting. In general, the quarterstaff can be nice for characters that you don't plan on getting into weapon skills too much, just because they have pretty high base damage. You're going to be attacking a little bit slowly, but decent accuracy, really solid hit damage without any training, of course. But we'll make that call when the time comes. For now, happy with a short sword. It's still one of the top weapons. I once saw a graphic that was kind of displaying the best weapons to find when you have no skill training whatsoever, and kind of in order of when they'd usually appear in the game. And in D1, I remember quarterstaff being up there, but short sword was definitely one of the big ones. Just because it's so easy to pick up and put into action right away. Not too bad here. We could learn Searing Ray, and I think I will, seeing as how it does quite a bit of damage and is our first multi-hit spell. If we can line up our enemies nicely, we can just keep blasting them with that ray. Especially against our first null pack here. Probably should just run away, and we're very likely to. I'm not even going to take 1 turn in range of this halberd null. That's definitely asking for trouble. 6 damage plus the halberd. Not quite a one-shot from full health, but scarily close to being so. But this first buddy, we can just blast with the ray, and then we can potentially magic dart a couple of times. Try and kill 1 before we have to retreat, And probably just head to a different stairwell. We can't even afford that single turn free action for our null compatriot there. But still can't complain too much. The first adder is scary. I'm hoping this ray... Not quite, hey? Well, we're just gonna have to keep slapping away and hope that we don't become lethally poisoned, which we don't. That's the thing, me talking about humanoids with weapons, I mean sure on D1 that's what we're scared of, but an adder anywhere in the first few floors of the dungeon is absolutely terrifying. We don't want to take too much poison damage because that starts ramping up far too quickly. But skills are coming along nicely, and it does look like we'll pretty much have our level 4 spells castable, sorry, by the time we get there. So that is absolutely huge. And otherwise, we just keep blasting. Ooh, first spellbook, unfortunately, kind of garbage for this character, but I won't hold that against the game. That was also partially what played into our decision to go with Conjure at the start here, is that it leaves our venues open in the future for any kind of spellbooks that we come across. It is likely that we'll be able to switch up our training, go with whatever kind of feels right at the moment. Now, man, if we do an elf shooter, you wanted to throw your hat in for elf defense. Too bad Bard is dead, or we could do elfish Presley. See, this is why I need you, Safage, because you might have missed it, but at the start of the stream today, I was struggling because I did not take the time earlier in the day to try and think up any names. So it's just like, oh gosh, name an elf, I got nothing. But I can always rely on you to come up with something clever for us in the future. So thank you for that. I felt like a lot of the names that I was thinking of were a bit more fitting for a shooter or like a hunter of sorts, which we could always kind of dip into. I mean, I do love my shields, even with the changes in 0.28 to make spellcasting harder in shields. I feel like I'm still likely to go with it. But if we don't happen to come across any, of course, then it might be a good opportunity to use bows, because we do have a +3 aptitude in bows. So it can definitely ramp that up there fairly quickly and get that damage, some non-mana dependent damage out there right away. Or for Wizard, Prestidigitation. Of course, named after the best spell, one of the first spells that any wizard can get, and definitely the best, just because of the sheer utility of it. That's one of those spells that in D&D I try my best to be a cheesy little son of a gun and try and break mechanics by using it in creative and non-conventional ways. But alright, we are just rolling through the early dungeon here. Compared to other spellcasters, you can already see why Deep Elves have such a leg up. With that extra mana power, we're really able to just rely on our spells for all of these fights instead of having to kind of struggle with constantly being at low mana, needing to recover, and all that. Instead, we just absolutely blast through these sons of guns. We did hit level 4 as well, so we can check on these spells. Got them down to 24%. It's not bad. This is about the stage, though, where we should probably learn them and start cross-training some of the other schools just to get that last little bit down. So I'm going to start with IMB. I do respect the Fulminant Prism now, so we will be getting that at some point, but I would like to get my defenses in order first, I think. So we'll train this up to somewhere around 4. That should happen pretty quickly. And in fact, while we're here, why don't we quickly set some caps just so we don't go shooting off and overtraining something without really realizing what I'm doing. Even conjurations can, for now, hit at 12. That'll give us a nice reminder that skills have hit their caps when we get there. So unfortunately, we haven't seen too many magical doodads thus far, but definitely still have time to go. Ooh, and the Economical Temple now is a fantastic find. Let's take a quick peek. We might be kind of boring today. I was trying to decide how spicy I wanted to be across the board. Ooh, I knew that your ed got reworked for the the update, but I didn't know that the altar also got a rework. Looking good, Red. Looking good. Now it actually looks distinctly different from Dithmenos, because that was a problem that I always had, is confusing those two altars against each other. They were both just kind of black blobs on the screen. But as kind of briefly mentioned, I do feel like we might be a little bit bog standard and straightforward today, and go with Vehemet once again. It's too bad that we just did so on our last Tengu character, but at the end of the day, Deep Elves are just a great exhibition for how spellcasters can be played here and really steamroll and gain a lot of blasting power early on. So with that in mind, maybe we'll support that dream, and we'll start off here just to see how it works. Fedaz, do a coward you won't. Oh, you are right. I am a coward. Even though, with that in mind, if this character dies, we'll go with the shooting background, we'll go with ranged damage throughout the game, and that one definitely would go Fedaz. Because it's definitely a god that I don't really see too much, I haven't used too much for myself in the past, but I've heard really good things about using them in conjunction with a ranged build. So I think I will take the coward's route out for now, but we'll prime it up for the next one, because if I can't make it through first try while every odd is in my favor, then we might as well get a little silly with it, a little wacky and wild, and just have some fun after the fact. In general, I'm just kind of excited to get off of all of these low HP species. Someday it's gotta happen, right? But I also like to see that in the new version here, it looks like the red highlight around scary enemies has been added to the offline version, so that's pretty sweet. That was something I was always kind of jealous of the Tiles user for. But I will pick up a Longsword of Holy Wrath. Maybe we'll end up using that earlier. Could definitely see it being useful. I also potentially want to pop back here. There's an unexplored stairwell up. That seems strange. So there's some kind of hidden area on the above floor. This is something that I've stopped doing very often, but I used to be in a big habit of counting all the upstairs and downstairs on every floor, because of course you know there are going to be 3, excluding any of these silly trapdoor nonsense. But doing so, you can always make sure that you're not missing out on those little secrets. I mean, I think that's mostly a holdover from back in the day when there weren't these little new stair asterisks in order to help us out. Instead, you just kind of had to go with your gut and remember which stairwells you'd gone down before. Or up. Hello, friend. I've also realized over the last couple of adders that we've come across that I started out using Searing Ray against that first adder we found, which is potentially not the move, just because Magic Dart can't miss, I believe, versus Searing Ray being a bolt spell definitely can, so it has a bit more issue there. Or at the very least, we just have better accuracy with the Magic Dart. Regardless, what it comes down to is that we potentially want to be using Magic Dart a little more prodigiously against these high evasion enemies early on, just because at least then we're guaranteed to get some traction, some movement forward. Fireball! Feels very good, then. Not only did we just pick up Fireball, but we also picked up my favorite spell of all time, of course, good old Ignition. So, as long as this character can survive, we've pretty much guaranteed our way through the middle to end game. Just have to survive until then, of course. But okie dokie. And look that IMB is now fairly castable at 12%. I was actually thinking of potentially checking out the next lightest piece of armor here. We're never really going to be in heavy armor. A strength of 4 means that this encumbrance rating is going to hit real hard, but leather armor, technically usable. So we could go up to 4 AC. Still not great, but it's something. Some form of survivability. Let's test what that does to our spell failure rate, shall we? Puts IMB up to 22%, which is not great. So maybe we'll leave it off for now, but have that in the near future as a potential issue, or a potential option rather. Hey Brain, how's it going? Hope you're having a fantastic weekend, that your crawling has been going well, and real life too, of course. Is Wereblood a must-have too? In general, I'm actually a little bit biased against Wereblood, especially on this character, just because we won't have a great opportunity to train up one of our weapon skills. Long blades and short blades, not too bad. But we're not going to be too concerned about getting slain up, instead just relying on that extra magic pool that we have innately and Vehemet to just keep us casting spells as often as possible and just keep blasting. Yeah, I agreed, Brain. I hope as well everybody's Sunday is going fantastic here. It's nice to see all your lovely names in the evening here. Hey Callie, hope you're having a great weekend, or had a great weekend as well. Ooh, this is a water moccasin zombie, so it's actually kind of scary, but we managed to take it out in one fell swoop here. An 82% chance to hit with Searing Ray. Can definitely kill this scorpion. I'm thinking that's the one that we left dangling by a stairwell before. And Sky Beast, what about you? 12 damage? Potentially scary, but we should be able to take you out. We'll just pop back here real quick. That's unexplored territory. Let's not do that. And Searing Ray. Save me. Unfortunately not. You do fly. Hey friend. Don't like that, but if you take a turn going invisible, then we at least have a slight option. Please do it right as I step to the stairs. What a friend. Oh, never mind. You did step up to us. Whoops. I got excited there for a moment. Well, now we are sitting in lethal territory. So let's take a step back here. My usual hands off the keyboard routine to think about our options. We could start reading some scrolls here. We could start chugging some potions. Is there anything else we can do? IMB is potentially an option as well. 10% failure rate, not too bad. So let's do that. Probably our best chance of surviving. Ouch. Well, that didn't quite work out as intended. Let's take one step so we at least have further to blast this son of a gun off. That's potentially going to be enough. Though it is going to be a scary time. And there we go, surviving. Got down to 2 health at one point, but that's what I get for trying to tangle with a red highlighted monster before we're totally prepared for it. Didn't help, of course, that we misstepped at the start of the fight and took an early hit as well. So whoopsie daisies in that regard. Got a tourney character off the ground and just finished a Wiz Lab in Vaults. Nice, that's awesome, Brain. Wish you the best of luck with that character. I'm excited to get back to our own tournament character in just a bit here. Hello, my dead moccasin friend. Goodbye. Should take these moccasins and make a pair of moccasins out of them. Sounds like a nice texture, I'm sure. And a phantom. A little bit of a pain in the butt, but we should be able to kill you at this stage. In fact, not too bad whatsoever making it through that. We got very fortunate that they didn't keep blinking out of our Searing Ray, but I'll take whatever I can get for sure. And we just rinse and repeat here. I should be slightly more cautious when we're going up against these fast enemies. I should make sure that we have a nice clear area behind them so that we can use IMB to blast them off. Okay, Tor, it's about to be D6. Have we identified anything yet? Oh, come on. You know me better than that. Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. That just seems silly. Even after the Sky Beast dilemma that almost caused problems for us, we still haven't gone around to it. And hello, friend. We were just talking about one of your kind. I'm gonna take this orc back so that we don't get that sky beast trailing after us immediately. Might be smart. And how about we compromise a bit? I'll finish D5 and then we'll ID stuff for the first time. Unreasonable still? Probably. But unreasonable is just the name of the game sometimes. Go Gadget, Searing Ray. As soon as that stops being effective, we'll switch over to IMB real quick. And not too shabby here. There's no more near-death experiences on this floor, and maybe we can ID something. Wouldn't that be nice, game? Perfect. Ray and Pray indeed, Brain. The name of my autobiography right there. But okie dokie. We've managed to make it this far now, so let's do it. D6 seems like a good time to finally get around to doing something that we should do right off the bat. We do get ID scrolls right away. Unfortunately, none of our healing potions. So I will switch over to IDing one of our scroll stacks. Tempted to read this other 3 to see if they're teleport. Let's do it. It is in fact teleport, so let's head upstairs. Make sure we don't get dropped off into a large group of scary enemies. And we'll keep going. Another Longsword of Wrath, or Holy Wrath rather. How about that? Well, at least IMB is now up to the stage where it's no longer warning us each and every time we try and use it, so that's always pretty solid. And I agree, Safe at Lig definitely might be useful. It's not exactly what you dream about IDing right off the bat, but that doesn't change the fact that it just might save our life, especially since just a bit ago we were talking about how dangerous the poison can be on a low HP character. Might be very handy to have something like that in our back pocket. Let's take this lovely little black bear on a bit of a journey. And IMB to just quickly finish off the job. Fantastic. Even the centaur zombie not completely ruining our day, which is always a good thing in my book. Wouldn't have been quite so straightforward if that had been an alive centaur. And a mark definitely means we immediately head to the stairs. This is not a species that we want to fool around too much with hordes of enemies descending from all sides. Unfortunately, our extra bit of magical energy does not help us too much when we get utterly surrounded with an endless supply of enemies. Steam Dragon is interesting. We do have resistance to fire, so the steam's not going to hurt too badly. Unfortunately, IMB is not quite as useful just because this enemy has a ranged attack. But it is possible that we beat you. And Steam Dragon Scales is a nice find early on for us. So let's try it out and see how she goes. If I just Ray again, do you keep going the same direction? Hopefully you kept going just as far too, but I somehow doubt that. But there we go, one IMB blast doing an absolute truckload of damage. And we have no problems whatsoever finishing off the fight, even getting the Steam Dragon Scales that we were hoping for. Nice light piece of armor that's not going to completely ruin our ability to cast spells, while still giving us a nice little boost in AC. This leather can even be thrown onto the ground. Fantastic. And there we go. The nice matted gray bringing out the white highlights of our hair. So, you know, it's a good start from a fashion standpoint as well. Ooh, and now I really want a Wand of Digging. I'm gonna have to remember that collection of spellbooks is there. That is absolutely fantastic for us to find early on. No guarantee that we will get that Digging Wand anytime soon, but I'll take whatever I can get. We're down to 3% cast rate on IMB. Oops, let's not accidentally turn on a skill here. So, to me, that does speak to potentially bringing out Fulminant Prism. We do want to pivot into fire at some point, I believe. Hard not to with that early spellbook find. But we're not in an exceptional rush, and if we can just focus on getting some good survivability tools in our toolkit beforehand, it will definitely help out in the long run here. Hopefully not the wrong run. which is what I was about to say by accident. Cross our fingers that that wasn't a Freudian slip that will accidentally manifest into existence, but I'm hoping we'll be okay. And again, not too bad. Always happy to find our centaurs are already dead. Fantastic stuff. And again, I'll take it. Again, not exactly as nice of a situation if they were living and breathing with a bow at their disposal. In general, this has been a pretty undead-filled area. It's been a bit wild for that. And now IMB is going to be our lifesaver. That moccasin very much scared me on first sight. I had a moment of panic, but then I remembered IMB is just too good. So we'll be okay against the majority of those melee-based enemies early on. It's a bit trickier when they're quick, because of course they do manage to occasionally get that step forward and slug us with a big hit. But that is a risk that we're just going to have to be willing to take. And hopefully doesn't happen too often. And there's the living and breathing centaur. I knew we'd see you eventually, friend. So this corner back here is a much better area for this fight. Unfortunately, we just have so much wide open space. I'm guessing the centaur is going to come out up here somewhere, which is not fantastic. But running back will also struggle a wee bit here. So let's just pop around our corner. And there we go. We can even IMB you without pushing you back too far, so that works out nicely. Fantastic. Oh man, Deep Elf better be casting level 9 spells by Lair's End. We really should be focusing down on that. And in fact, if we take a look, Fulminant Prism is now fully castable, and we just have Conjurations on. So I think this is a decent opportunity, now that the rest of these skills have hit their caps, for us to just start blasting that fire magic up as soon as possible. Let's cap this off at like 16, might bring it up to 20, but might not be a level 9 spell, but having Ignition castable by Lair would be its own fantastic result to look forward to. As we just continue to switch off between mostly Searing Rain, IMB to take out any strong targets, we should be in a pretty alright spot until we get to that lair entrance. Even a two-headed ogre, something that we've been dreadfully scared of on the majority of our recent runs, seeing as how we keep running into them early, no problem, as long as you have that IMB nice and castable. Fantastic stuff. Poison, on the other hand, not so great. We don't love that here. In fact, maybe I'll take these buddies on a wee bit of a stroll and head for one of our stairs up. Because we just about had Fireball castable, and it might be nice to have something like that to just quickly take care of the Brigand before we take too many of those hits. And hey Colgate, what are my thoughts on Cinder Acolyte? Really fun. It's a bit interesting because you don't start off with a plethora of spells. You just have Scorch at your disposal, so you're kind of crossing your fingers and hoping that you get more fire spells. So that's a bit of an interesting mechanic, but I had a lot of fun with them on the one run that we tried it out on Wednesday. I was very tempted to go with that route on this character here, but we decided to go a little bit more boring. Cinder Acolyte is the ultimate pivot start. You can do whatever. Exactly. No, definitely true. You have to be ready and willing to be on the balls of your feet and roll with the punches as they come in. There we go. Let's learn Fireball here. Fantastic stuff. And maybe I will actually, just real quick here, make the macro for my E slot, so we can throw that out with Wild Abandon in the future. Except have Dexterity. Yeah, so no heavy dodge builds for the poor Cinder Acolytes, but definitely have to be ready and willing to make do with what you got. I don't really want to make too much noise with Fulminant Prism or Fireball here, so I think I'll just take this small contingent of yaks back to the stairs and then go back to our usual routine here and just swapping back between these spells. Ooh, until I miscast IMB. I think that's at a 1% now, isn't it? Huh, how about that? How about that? Oh, and these kobolds were still around. Oh no, this has gone real scary very quickly. We could Lig. Gives us a little bit more health, some resistance to any future poisoning, as well as AC. Alternatively, it'd be trying to teleport and hoping that we didn't get too many more poison darts sent our way. I already took one too many turns there in my walking away quickly. This is why we take our time, think about our actions before going through with them. And also try and remember when we didn't clear floors properly. Whoopsie daisies, let's do it. I am gonna Lig here real quick. Even start blasting this son of a gun, not great. So I'm gonna start drinking potions. We're lethally poisoned, so now I'm just gonna be chugging potions for a bit. This might be where we die. Oh, rage. That's not great. I think we're just dead now, unfortunately. Dragging it out thanks to the extra AC from tree form, but there we go. Whoopsie daisies. Oh, very early end to the potential streak that we could have started after finally getting through with Tengu. But that's okay, all part of the fun with Deep Elves here. Definitely should have just read the teleport scroll instead, tried to get zooped out to another section of the level, committed a bit too hard with that Lig potion, especially since we'd already taken a ridiculous amount of poison damage. I was kind of secretly hoping that one of our 2 stacks, specifically the one that ended up being Potion of Attraction, was going to be curing or heal wounds, but hey, it's what I deserve for trying to rely on some random chance like that, right? So an early end, which means we can immediately go to using some actual fun names, which should be cool. Maybe just secretly a Jivia Acolyte, having Consumable God helps to survive until the Jivia altar, and using Ignis abilities spares consumables, makes up for Jivia eating them later. That's interesting. 9th degree in Ignis into Jivia is legit. You need to get lucky with the Jivia altar though. Interesting. That is really fun. If I wasn't completely obsessed with the idea of not abandoning Ignis and trying to get out of the dungeon and supply some power from the Orb of Zot, maybe to bring them back to life in the epilogue of the run, then maybe I'd think about abandoning them somewhere there. And speaking of which, Jivia got pretty huge buffs in 0.28. Shuriken, have you tried new and improved Jivia yet? I've not. In fact, I have never tried Jivia on any character. That's something that I've never had the pleasure to experiment with, especially since I usually end up going with God off the start, and I'm not one who abandons in general very often. But might just have to try and get it working at some point. Cinder Acolyte, Ignis to Jivia stream might just be the excuse I need in the future to actually try out something a little more interesting and fun here. But okie dokie. Time for the question of the hour here. Do we want to just go with another spellcasting background, most likely chances of success, or do we want to potentially go with one of the hunter brigand style backgrounds, get some ranged capability, and go with that route? Maybe use bows, since it's not likely that I use bows on any character besides a Formicid in the future. So it might be the best opportunity we've got to have some fun on that side. So definitely, if you have any recommendations or suggestions, let me know, and otherwise I will probably flip a coin to make the decision for myself. Ignis is built to be abandoned, Sif 2. Yes, the classic 9th Sip dichotomy, I guess, dilemma. Do we not play in the tournament anymore? Just not for these Sundays. I didn't want this series to slow down. The attempts for great players stops for no one, stops for no tournament. But don't you worry, we will definitely be back into the mix later on in the week here, or during the week, I should say. And hey, Prince Cosmo, howdy to yourself. Hope you're having a fantastic day here.